as the arguments rage over how to handle the European crisis. Welcome to Question Time. With me tonight here in Maidstone, Ken Clarke, now Justice Secretary, Chancellor of the Exchequer under John Major, the newly re-elected leader of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage, Paddy Ashdown, formerly leader of the Liberal Democrats, the Shadow Culture Minister Gloria De Piero, former GMTV presenter, rising star in the Labour Party, and the popular author and co-founder of the Orange Prize for Fiction, Kate Moss. Thank you very much. Welcome to the programme. Let's have our first question straight away from Mark Towers, please. Mr. Towers.
In the light of the bailouts for Greece and Ireland and the ongoing problems for Portugal and Spain, is the euro doomed?
Is the euro doomed, Nigel Farage?
Well,
simple question.
In its current structure, yes, of course it's doomed. It was always going to be doomed. You know, if you go back just over 10 years to when the euro was launched, it was pretty obvious then that there were countries that were never, ever going to fit into that euro mould. It was obvious that Ireland, it was obvious that Greece, it was obvious that Portugal weren't going to fit it. But of course, remember that the euro wasn't launched for economics, it was launched for political reasons. And the people that support the euro are the people that want to build a new United States of Europe. They want to do it whether the peoples want it or not. They intend to impose it upon them. And there are some on this panel who, despite the catastrophe of the exchange rate mechanism in the early 1990s, still thought 10 years ago that Britain should have joined the euro. Thank goodness we didn't join the euro. That was a very, very good thing. It was a great victory for common sense, a great victory for public opinion. But I'm afraid what has happened in Ireland this week is no more than a sticking plaster over the problem. I've no doubt that it'll be Portugal next. It may be Belgium thereafter, my favourite country. And if it gets to Spain, if we have to bail out Spain, then remember that the Spanish economy, the Spanish debt, is 7 times that of Ireland. At that point, all the money will have run out. The euro will not continue to exist in its current form, and frankly, thank goodness for that, because these countries like Greece and Ireland are trapped inside an economic prison. What they need now desperately is to get their own countries back, to devalue and to get back to running their own economies, and the sooner it happens, the better.
Just before I come to you, Nigel Farage, just remind people of the quote. We're going to have a system where the middle classes are discouraged from breeding because it's jolly expensive, but for those on benefits, there's every incentive. Well, that's not very sensible. What's your reaction?
Well, I mean, Howard Flight has his own way of putting things, and his comments may have offended people. But just remember, Howard Flight has a record on this, because in 2005, he said, we are borrowing and spending too much money as a country. The next government needs to cut by at least 20 billion. And this was considered an outrage, a total heresy. Well, 5 years on, we can see that actually Howard Flight was spot on. We were borrowing too much and we were spending too much. Now, look, there is no doubt about it that the hard-pressed middle-income people in this country are being very badly hit by increased taxes, by an increased cost of living, which I think everybody feels, whether it's petrol or electricity prices or whatever it is, and that the withdrawal of child maintenance is a factor, and people will have less children if they haven't got as much money, and there's a feeling that Howard Flight is expressing that perhaps it's wrong that those that have got nothing, if they're single and 16 years old and have a child, get a council house. All right? So he may have used colourful language. It may have offended some people, but for goodness sake, can we have some grown-up politics in this country where people are allowed to express an opinion without being shouted down by all and sundry?
So you rather agree with what he said?
I think there is some merit in what he said. I don't know, David, what the solution is, because if you say to somebody who's young and very poor, who's having a child, that you're out on the streets, that won't work either. But for goodness sake, let's at least have a debate about it, and let's not condemn him for having views which, we should be discussing.
OK. Kate Moss, man in the second row from the back.
It's all fine and well having a cap on non-EU migrants, but surely you need to sort out the problem of European migrants, because in my opinion there's too many of them coming over and taking jobs which could be given to the British unemployed.
Nigel Farage.
Yeah, look, this whole argument's a nonsense, isn't it? Because all the government and all the opposition do is talk about non-EU migration, the area over which we still just about have some control, although the EU wants to take that over as well in the course of the next couple of years. Look, if we want people, skilled people, to come to work in our country, industry needs them, what's left of the City of London needs them, then that's fine. You give people work permits. But what we've done to the whole of Eastern Europe is we've said as many millions of you that want to come to Britain can come. There are absolutely no controls whatsoever, and after a short period of time, you can settle here, you can bring your extended family, and what it's led to, and we've all seen it since 2004. We've seen the ghettoisation of our cities, of our market towns. We've seen an awful lot of people who could have got jobs that sadly haven't got those jobs, and it's led to increased bad feeling in society. I am not opposed to immigration. I think on balance, Paddy, you're right. Much of the immigration into Britain has been good. But it is utterly irresponsible and stupid to give away control of your immigration policy to the European Union. And it's one of the reasons why, if we want to control who lives, works and settles in this country, we have to leave the European Union, follow the lead the Daily Express has given us today. And one of the first things we can do is take back control of immigration.
Right.
We have to do it.
So two issues. So let's...
Louise Jarvis, please. Louise Jarvis.
In view of the current austerity measures, is it a ludicrous waste of money to commission a £2 million survey to evaluate the happiness of the British public?
Nigel
What,
Farage.
libraries?
Nigel Farage.
Libraries are a waste of money. What,
No,
libraries
not
are?
libraries. No, he wasn't
Oh,
arguing.
no, I'm
They've
saying...
spending it on a happiness survey. It's a complete waste of money.
Nigel Farage.
I think the answer to the question is yes.
Yes to what question?
Yes.
Is it a waste of
I think
money?
it is I think the whole thing's complete baloney. Whilst you can't measure happiness in life just by GDP and just by wealth, what criteria would you use? If you did this survey the day after England had won the Ashes against Australia, oh gosh, that's rather optimistic after what happened last night. But if you did it then, people would feel happier. If you asked people, are they starving, and they said no, you'd say, well, look, people are happy. But what if you asked people, do they like politicians? What if you asked? Well, I mean, it's just worth trying. What if you asked smokers whether they were happy that they can't smoke in their pub? What if you asked commuters from Maidstone whether they enjoyed going up to London and back every day? What criteria would you use to establish this? I think the whole thing is nonsense.
But that's true, but...
All right, hold on. Ken Clark. Well, Mark Everest, please. We seem to be... Mark Everest.
Is it right for the Prime Minister to join in with jokes that refer to the Speaker as a dwarf?
Is it right for the Prime Minister to join in jokes that refer to the Speaker as a dwarf? And I suppose behind this is a feeling there might be hostility between the two of them. The joke, I suppose I better reveal, was that he said that in making a speech to the press, the Prime Minister said that somebody backed his car into the Speaker's car, and the Speaker came down from his apartment and said, "I'm not happy." And the Minister said, "Then which one are you?" Nigel Farage.
John Bercow is a pretty thick-skinned individual, and he has to be, goodness me, with that Twitter feed that his wife keeps putting out every day, criticising the Tory party and even criticising him. No, John Bercow's not going to be offended by this. I think that the last thing we want are po-faced politicians and po-faced prime ministers. Winston Churchill said some pretty outrageous things to all sorts of people and was possibly our greatest prime minister ever. I don't agree with everything David Cameron has done since he's been prime minister, but it strikes me this joke is one of the better things that he's done.
Okay. Thank you all panellists for coming here, and to you, the audience, thank you very much. Until next Thursday from Maidstone. Good night.